We can compare fractions with unlike denominators in 3 different ways. In all 3 methods, we will look to find a common denominator before comparing. So in our first method, if you notice one denominator is a factor of the other denominator, for example, 5 can be multiplied by 2 to get 10, then use the greater denominator, in this case 10, for the common denominator. Extend your line from your 3/5 and remember we are trying to find a common denominator of 10, so whatever you do to the bottom, or the denominator, you need to do to the top, the numerator. So since we know that 5 times 2 is 10, then I know that I also have to multiply the top number, or the numerator, by 2. 3 times 2 is 6. I can rewrite the fractions. 3/5 is the same as 6/10, and I can leave 5/10 alone. If the denominators are the same, you compare the numerators. The greater the numerator, the greater the fraction. So 6/10 is greater than 5/10. Since 6/10 is the same as 3/5, this also means that 3/5 is also greater than 5/10. In the second method, we come across 2 denominators that only have 1 as their common factor. We then use the product of the denominator, which means multiplying 8 times 5, which equals 40. 40 will be our new common denominator. We can take each fraction, so 5/8, extend your line, and know that we are trying to get to the common denominator of 40. To get from 8 to 40, we multiply by 5. Whatever we do to the bottom, or the denominator, we do to the top. So 5 times 5 is 25. I will do the same thing with my other fraction. Rewrite 4/5 and extend the line. I know my common denominator is going to be 40. How do I get from 5 to 40? I can multiply by 8. Whatever I do to the denominator, I do to the numerator. I multiply 4 times 8, which is 32. I now can rewrite both fractions, 25/40 and 32/40. If the denominators are the same, you compare the numerators. The greater the numerator, the greater the fraction. So 25/40 is less than 32/40. This also means that 5/8 is less than 4/5. Our third method is used when both denominators have a common factor besides 1. We can start by listing the first few multiples of each denominator. So, for the 8, the count bys are 8, 16, 24, 32, 40, 48. For the number 12, the count bys are 12, 24, 36, 48. I see 24 is the lowest common factor, so I will use it as my common denominator. I'll take my first fraction, 5/8, and rewrite it. Again, I will extend my line and try to get 24th as my new denominator. To get from 8 to 24, you multiply 8 times 3. Whatever you do to the bottom, you do to the top. So 5 times 3 is 15. I can rewrite my other fraction, 7/12, extend the line, and know that I'm trying to get to 24ths. To get from 12 to 24, I multiply by 2. Whatever I do to the bottom, I do to the top. 7 times 2 is 14. I can take both of those fractions and rewrite them next to each other to compare them. 15/24 and 14/24. Again, the denominators are the same, so I can compare the numerators. The greater the numerator, the greater the fraction. So 15/24 is greater than 14/24. This also means that 5/8 is greater than 7/12.